We found it. A place where Utah forgets to hold onto the earth, where the mesa drops off so abruptly, it feels like you're staring into the abyss. Locals call it the edge of the world. Dramatic? Yes. Accurate? Also, yes. But the cliffs aren't the only things whispering stories out here. There are messages carved in stone, left by hands older than memory, and trails that disappear into a landscape that looks more Martian than anything else. Today, we're not just off-roading. We're stepping into the unknown, where ancient symbols meet vast silence, and every corner feels like a place the map forgot. What will we find out here? Only one way to know. Let's go find the edge. We are going petroglyph hunting today, and we are on a loop that is, I don't know if it's on Onyx or not, but it's called Little Creek Mesa. And I've been doing research into petroglyphs for years, and I've been pinning some, and these are some likely locations from other explorers who have shared them with me. And so we are going to go hunting for those, and apparently this trail is a 2 out of 3 from what I was finding on trails off-road. So it should be a pretty good time, hopefully. And we're going to be doing it, for the loop, we're going to be doing it clockwise. So when you get to the split in the road, if you decide to do this, we are going to the left first. And yeah, if there's any interesting trucky things along the way, we'll share it with you. And when we find some petroglyphs, we'll also show you as well. So let's get to it, right? We found the trail on Gaia GPS after one too many evenings down a rabbit hole of ancient maps, rock art forms, and probably some questionable theories about lost civilizations. Over the years, I've pinned a few promising spots. Maybe a waterglyph, maybe some petroglyphs, maybe nothing. But we had a tank of gas, a packed cooler, and a little bit of curiosity to spare. We started about mid-morning, the sun already high, but it wasn't hostile yet. Dane, bless his optimistic skepticism, was convinced this was going to turn into one of those trails. You know, the kind that are more yawn than adventure and scratchy, and he doesn't want to scratch the truck, kind of like our last trip down to the Arizona Strip. Yeah, maybe that could have probably doubled and turned into a test of marital endurance instead of a trail, but here we are. I promised him this one would be different. I had no proof, but I did have Everett on my side, who thought looking for waterglyphs sounded like something out of National Treasure. Dane, of course, rolled his eyes, but he decided to humor me anyway. And of course, that's how you know you're off to a good start on an adventure. The trail was easy going at first. We spotted some blooming cactus dotting the road in the red soil. It was kind of like having confetti along the trail. And the ZR2, of course, crawled along without a hiccup. It wasn't long before we rolled up to our first pin, and this was waterglyph territory, or so we hoped. We parked and set off on foot. We're on our first stop here, and we are searching for a waterglyph. So we took the trail as far as it would go, and it does get very scratchy towards the end, so if you want to try to find any of these things, just be aware that it does get scratchy. But we're gonna put on some backpacks now, and we're gonna I think we don't have too far to walk to find it, but we kind of have a pin of where we think it might be. So we're gonna just start trudging on into the forest. Hiking toward the edge of a small canyon, but it quickly turned into quite a bit of bushwhacking. The kind of hike where every thorn in the desert inserts itself into your skin just a little bit. But eventually, things started to open up, and we reached the rim and started our search. Made it to the edge, and now we get to search for the waterglyph. And so for anybody who's not familiar with waterglyphs, those are actually made by people in this area that's kind of in the Arizona Strip area, and they were markings for water. So if you found one of these and you were thirsty, you knew which direction water would be. So that is the whole purpose of these. And so we're gonna try to find this one because they're very rare and hard to find. So if we get skunked, I won't be surprised, but if we find one, I'm gonna be so excited. We didn't find a textbook waterglyph like we did on our last adventure, but we did find something just as fascinating: hollowed out stone basins. And these are actually called pecked basins, and they're used to collect rainwater. I've seen similar ones in Chaco Canyon, but here on Little Creek Mesa, it was kind of a surprise. It's really clever of the ancient people to do this. Of course, Dane was not impressed. Dane gave me this is not a waterglyph and you owe me a beer look. But hey, we found something, so I think that counts. From there, we headed to our next pin, marked possible petroglyphs with a confidence level of maybe. This one also required a small hike that led us to a desert spring, and something unexpected happened. Dane and Everett were pretty excited about the spring. The spring in the desert was cool because it actually had water in it. As we explored around, then it finally happened. The petroglyphs appeared.
Sorry, that's the little one.
These were real ones, ancient ones, spirals, lines, and what it even looked like it was a solar calendar. It looked like the desert had been holding its breath for us to find it. We stood around and admired them for quite a bit, but then we had to get moving. Super excited that we found that petroglyph pin because sometimes we pin stuff that we found before, like GPS coordinates, or it's in this area, but we don't find stuff. So when we actually find real petroglyphs out in the wild, it's super exciting. Also, with these ones were super neat because they were all on the ground, which typically they get eroded really quickly, and but we have also seen some that in other parts of Utah where they've been on the ground and they haven't eroded. So maybe it's just the way that they drew them. They knew that they needed to be a little darker. I don't know. But anyway, super cool. We're gonna go to our next pin and hope we have just as much success as we just had. Up next for us was the overlook. And this overlook had the name, the Edge of the World. We were expecting something nice. Mesas usually deliver, but we weren't ready for this. The land just ended. It vanished, dropped away like somebody took a celestial carving knife and sliced the horizon wide open. Zion to the north, Sand Hollow to the west, and silence. So much silence. If you're into overlanding, let me tell you, this is where you pitch your tent. We finally peeled ourselves away from the view and made our way to the last petroglyph site. And just like that, we were at the next petroglyph site. Of course, another hike, a little steeper, but the petroglyphs, at least this time, were pretty easy to find. This one was a winding line that ended in a spiral, possibly marking the solstices like others in the region. No nearby shadow casting rocks, so maybe it wasn't a solar tracker after all. Maybe it meant something entirely different. And maybe we're just projecting. That's part of the fun. The last site was what we had hoped for all along, a ruin. We are at our last stop here, and it may not seem like much, but when you think that these people built this by hand and that some of this is still here, it's kind of neat. So these are the ruins that are available for people to see. They're kind of just piles at this point, but I think they're still significant since, people took time to build them. So here they are. Mostly buried, modest in size, but clearly intentional. Small buildings tucked into the earth, and one might have even been a pit house. Much similar to the ones in Mesa Verde, but just a lot smaller. Forgotten, but not lost. By the end, even Dane had to admit, this loop was much better than the last one I took him on. Actual petroglyphs, ancient water collectors, a ruin, and a view that will stick with us long after we wash the dust off the truck. Sometimes you gamble on the unknown, and sometimes it pays off.